You know what's crazy about football? Sometimes the most talented players have the most complicated lives. And when we talk about pure talent mixed with personal struggles, nobody tells that story better than Ronaldinho. This Brazilian wizard didn't just play football. He danced with the ball, made defenders look silly, and always did it with that famous smile on his face. But behind that smile was a story full of incredible success and shocking failures that most people never really understand. Picture this. A kid from one of Brazil's poorest neighborhoods becomes the best player in the world, wins everything there is to win in football, and then loses it all. We're talking about someone who went from lifting the World Cup trophy to sitting in a prison cell, from having millions in the bank to having just $5 to his name. It sounds impossible, right? But that's exactly what happened to Ronaldo de Assis Moreira, the man the world knows as Ronaldinho. And today, I'm going to tell you the complete story. Not just the goals and trophies, but the real journey of how a poor kid from Porto Alegre became football royalty and then lost everything. Let me take you back to March 21, 1980 in Porto Alegre, Brazil. This wasn't one of those fancy Brazilian cities you see in tourist magazines. This was a rough neighborhood where most families struggled just to put food on the table. The Moreira family lived in a small house where the walls were thin and the dreams were big. João, the father, used to be a football player himself, but now he was working long hours at a shipyard, coming home exhausted and covered in sweat. Miguelina, the mother, worked as a nurse at the local hospital, often doing double shifts just to make ends meet. But there was something special about this family. They had football in their blood. The older son, Roberto, was already showing amazing talent with the ball. He was 10 years older than baby Ronaldo, and everyone in the neighborhood said Roberto was going to be the one who made it big. Little did they know that the baby crying in the corner would one day become one of football's greatest ever players. Growing up, young Ronaldo, they called him Ronaldinho, which means little Ronaldo, was obsessed with the ball. His mother tells this story about how she would find him sleeping with a football in his bed. Not a teddy bear like other kids, but an actual football. He'd wake up in the morning and the first thing he'd do is start juggling the ball in their tiny living room, often breaking things and getting in trouble. The neighborhood where they lived was tough, really tough. There were gangs, violence, and drugs everywhere. But there was also football. Every street had makeshift goals made from whatever people could find. Old pipes, wooden posts, sometimes just two rocks marking where the goal should be. Kids played barefoot on concrete, on dirt, in the rain. It didn't matter. Football was their escape from reality, and for Ronaldinho, it was everything. When Ronaldinho was 6 years old, something amazing happened to the family. Roberto, his older brother, signed his first professional contract with Grêmio, one of Porto Alegre's biggest clubs. Suddenly, the family had hope. Roberto's contract included a house, a real house, with proper rooms, and even a swimming pool. Can you imagine? Going from a tiny shack to a house with a pool. For little Ronaldinho, it was like moving to a palace. Roberto became more than just a brother to Ronaldinho. He became his hero, his teacher, his everything. Every day after training with Grêmio, Roberto would come home and spend hours teaching Ronaldinho tricks and techniques. He would set up cones in their backyard and make Ronaldinho dribble through them over and over again. Control the ball. Don't let the ball control you. Make the ball your friend, not your enemy, Roberto would say. Make the ball your friend, not your enemy. But life has a way of hitting you when you least expect it. When Ronaldinho was 8 years old, he came home from playing football with his friends to find his mother crying uncontrollably. His father, João, had suffered a massive heart attack while working on the house. He fell into the swimming pool and drowned. Just like that, in an instant, the family lost their rock, their provider, their biggest supporter. The funeral was heartbreaking. Little Ronaldinho stood there, not really understanding why his dad wasn't going to wake up, why he wasn't going to watch him play football anymore. His mother was devastated. Roberto was trying to be strong for everyone, and Ronaldinho just held his football, the only thing that made sense to him in that moment. After their father's death, things got even harder. Roberto was dealing with injury problems that threatened his career. The money wasn't coming in like before. Their mother had to work even more hours at the hospital. But Roberto, despite his own problems, never stopped believing in his little brother. He took over as the father figure, waking Ronaldinho up early for training, making sure he went to school, teaching him about discipline and dedication. Our father always said to play beautiful football, not just to win, but to make people happy, to give them something to smile about. That's what he would want you to do, Roberto would tell Ronaldinho. And Ronaldinho took those words to heart. Every time he stepped on a football pitch, he wasn't just playing for himself. He was playing for his father's memory, for his struggling mother, for his injured brother who sacrificed everything for him. By the time Ronaldinho turned 13, something extraordinary happened that would change everything. Gremio's youth team was playing in a local championship, and Ronaldinho was selected to play against a team from a local school. Now you have to understand, this wasn't supposed to be a real match. The other team was just a bunch of kids who had never played organized football before. They were just there to participate, not to compete. What happened next became legend in Porto Alegre. Ronaldinho scored 23 goals. Yes, you heard that right, 23 goals in one match. The final score was 23-0. But here's the thing. It wasn't about humiliating the other team. Ronaldinho was just playing his natural game and nobody could stop him. He was dribbling past 3, 4, 5 players at a time. He was scoring from impossible angles. He was doing things with the ball that 13-year-olds weren't supposed to be able to do. The local newspapers went crazy. "Future star is born," the headline screamed. Suddenly, everyone in Brazil wanted to know about this kid from Porto Alegre. Scouts from big clubs started showing up at Gremio's youth matches, but Ronaldinho stayed humble. His mother made sure of that. "You're good at football, but you're still my son, and you still have to do your homework and clean your room." At Gremio's academy, the coaches didn't know what to do with him. He played football differently from everyone else. While other kids were taught to pass quickly and play simple football, Ronaldinho wanted to dribble, to try tricks, to entertain. Some coaches loved it, others hated it. "You're too much of a street footballer," one coach told him. "You need to play proper football if you want to make it as a professional." But Ronaldinho couldn't change who he was. Football wasn't just about winning for him, it was about joy, about expression, about making people smile. He would try rainbow flicks in training, nutmegs during serious drills, and his teammates would either laugh or get angry, depending on whether he did it to them or to someone else. When he was 16, Ronaldinho got his first big chance to show Brazil what he could do. He was called up to play for Brazil's under-17 team in the South American Championship. This was huge. We're talking about representing your country, wearing that famous yellow shirt, playing against the best young players from Argentina, Uruguay, Colombia. The tournament was played in Paraguay, and Ronaldinho's family couldn't afford to travel to watch him play. So his mother and Roberto gathered around their small television, along with half the neighborhood, to watch their boy play for Brazil. In the group stages, Ronaldinho was good, but not spectacular. He was nervous, trying too hard to impress. But in the final against Argentina, Brazil's biggest rivals, something clicked. Maybe it was the pressure, maybe it was destiny, but Ronaldinho played like a man possessed. He didn't score, but he created both of Brazil's goals with incredible passes that left the Argentine defenders looking confused. Brazil won 2-0, and Ronaldinho was named one of the best players of the tournament. This performance earned him a spot in Brazil's squad for the Under-17 World Cup in Egypt. Can you imagine? A kid from the favelas of Porto Alegre was going to Egypt to play in a World Cup. His mother cried when she heard the news. Roberto told everyone in the neighborhood that his little brother was going to be a star. In Egypt, Ronaldinho discovered something important about himself. He loved the big stage. The bigger the game, the better he played. In the group stages, he was brilliant, scoring goals and creating chances. But it was in the final against Ghana where he really announced himself to the world. The match was played in Cairo, right in front of the pyramids. The setting was magical, and Ronaldinho rose to the occasion. He didn't score, but he provided 2 assists with passes that seemed impossible. The first was a backheel while surrounded by 3 defenders. The second was a through ball that split the entire Ghana defense. Brazil won 2-0, and 17-year-old Ronaldinho was a world champion. When he returned to Porto Alegre, he was a local hero. People recognized him on the streets. Kids wanted his autograph, and Grêmio knew they had something special. But they also knew they had a problem. Every big club in the world now knew about Ronaldinho, too. Back at Grêmio, things were getting serious. The club's senior team was struggling, and the fans were demanding that Ronaldinho be given a chance. The pressure was enormous. Here was this 17-year-old kid, and everyone expected him to save the club. The manager, Celso Roth, wasn't convinced. "He's talented," Roth said, "but he's still a boy. We can't put all our hopes on a teenager." But Ronaldinho had a way of forcing people's hands. In training, he was making experienced professionals look amateur. There's this famous story about a practice match where Ronaldinho nutmegged the team captain 3 times in 5 minutes. The captain, a tough defender who had played over 300 games for Grêmio, walked off the pitch and told the manager, "If you don't play this kid, you're an idiot." His debut came in the Copa Libertadores, South America's biggest club competition. The match was against Cerro Porteño from Paraguay. Grêmio were losing 1-0, and Roth decided to throw Ronaldinho on with 30 minutes left. What happened next was pure magic. His first touch was a piece of control that killed a 60-yard pass dead. His second touch was a turn that left a defender on his backside. The crowd went wild. Every time he touched a ball, you could feel the electricity in the stadium. He didn't score that day, but he created the equalizer with a pass that nobody else on the pitch even saw was possible. After that match, Ronaldinho was a regular starter, and the goals started flowing. But it wasn't just the goals, it was how he scored them. There was one against Internacional, Grêmio's biggest rivals, where he dribbled from the halfway line, beating 5 players before sliding the ball past the goalkeeper. The stadium erupted. Grown men were crying. This 18-year-old kid had just scored one of the greatest goals in the history of the Porto Alegre Derby. But the goal that really made Brazil take notice came in the Campeonato Gaucho final. Grêmio were playing Internacional again, and the match was massive. The whole state of Rio Grande do Sul was watching. In the first leg, Internacional won 1-0, and their captain, a guy named Dunga, yes, the same Dunga who won the World Cup for Brazil in 1994, said in the press that Ronaldinho was overrated and disrespectful with all his tricks. This made Ronaldinho angry, really angry. His brother, Roberto, told him to use that anger on the pitch. "Show them who you are," Roberto said, "but do it with the ball, not with words." The second leg was at Grêmio's stadium, and Ronaldinho was possessed. In the 20th minute, he scored a free kick that bent so much the goalkeeper didn't even move. In the second half, he scored another goal after dribbling past 3 players. But the moment everyone remembers came in the 70th minute. Ronaldinho received the ball in midfield and found himself one-on-one with Dunga. What happened next is still talked about in Porto Alegre today. Ronaldinho did this move. It's hard to describe, but imagine someone doing a step over, then a body feint, then another step over, all in about 1 second. Dunga didn't just fall over, he literally ended up on his backside, looking confused about what had just happened. Ronaldinho didn't even score from that move. He passed to a teammate instead. But the damage was done. He had humiliated Brazil's World Cup winning captain on live television. The crowd was going crazy, chanting his name. Even some Internacional fans were applauding. After the match, which Grêmio won 3-1 to win the championship, Ronaldinho was asked about the incident with Dunga. "I wasn't trying to humiliate anyone," he said with that famous smile. "I was just playing my football, the beautiful football my father taught me to play." But Dunga didn't forget. Years later, when he became Brazil's national team coach, he would leave Ronaldinho out of the 2010 World Cup squad. Many people believe it was revenge for that night in Porto Alegre, but that's a story for later. By 2001, Ronaldinho was 21 years old and had conquered everything in Brazilian football with Grêmio. He was scoring goals for fun, creating magic every week, and the European scouts were circling like sharks. Every big club wanted him: Barcelona, Arsenal, Manchester United, Paris Saint-Germain. The question wasn't if he would leave, but when and where. His brother Roberto, who was now his agent, was handling all the negotiations. This was both good and bad. Good because Roberto genuinely wanted the best for his little brother. Bad because Roberto wasn't really a professional agent and sometimes made decisions based on emotion rather than logic. Arsenal seemed like the perfect destination. Arsene Wenger, their manager, was known for developing young talent. He had personally called Ronaldinho to explain his vision. "You'll be my new Bergkamp, the artist in my team." Everything was agreed: the transfer fee, the salary, everything. Ronaldinho was going to London. But then disaster struck. The work permit was rejected. The British government had strict rules about non-European players, and somehow, despite being a Brazilian international, Ronaldinho didn't qualify. Wenger was furious, Ronaldinho was disappointed, and suddenly the move to Arsenal was dead. That's when Paris Saint-Germain stepped in. PSG in 2001 wasn't the super-rich club we know today. They were a decent team, nothing special, but they had ambition. They offered Grêmio good money and promised Ronaldinho he would be their star player. Roberto liked the deal because PSG's president spoke Portuguese and made them feel welcome. The move to Paris was a massive culture shock. Ronaldinho had never lived outside Brazil. He didn't speak French or English. The weather was cold and gray, nothing like the sunshine of Porto Alegre. The food was different, the people were different, everything was different. His first few months were tough, really tough. The French media was harsh, saying he was just another overpriced Brazilian who would fail in Europe. His teammates were skeptical. The manager, Luis Fernandes, was strict and didn't like players who tried too many tricks. "This isn't the beach," Fernandes would shout at him. "Play simple football." But Ronaldinho couldn't play simple football. It wasn't in his nature. He needed to express himself, to try things, to take risks. This led to constant arguments with Fernandes. The manager would substitute him after 60 minutes, sometimes even at halftime. The French press started calling him a flop. Then came a match against Marseille in October 2001 that changed everything. PSG were struggling, and the crowd was getting restless. In the 35th minute, Ronaldinho received the ball about 35 yards from goal. Everyone expected him to pass. Instead, he looked up, saw the goalkeeper off his line, and hit this incredible chip that floated over everyone and into the top corner. The stadium went silent for a second, then erupted. Even the Marseille fans applauded. It was a goal of pure genius, the kind of goal that reminds you why football is called the beautiful game. From that moment, Ronaldinho became a fan favorite in Paris. The 2002 World Cup in Japan and South Korea was where Ronaldinho truly announced himself as a global superstar. Brazil had assembled one of the greatest attacking lineups in World Cup history. They called them the 3 Rs: Ronaldo, Rivaldo, and Ronaldinho. It sounds simple when you say it like that, but the reality was incredible. Ronaldo was returning from years of injury problems. People wondered if he still had it. Rivaldo was the experienced one, the Ballon d'Or winner who knew how to win big games. And Ronaldinho? He was the young wild card, the player who could create magic from nothing. Brazil's preparation wasn't smooth. The media was criticizing the coach, Luis Felipe Scolari, for his defensive approach. People said this Brazil team wasn't Brazilian enough, that they had lost their samba style. Ronaldinho disagreed. "Let them talk," he told reporters. "We'll do our talking on the pitch." The group stage was relatively easy. Brazil beat Turkey, China, and Costa Rica without too much trouble. Ronaldinho was playing well, but not spectacularly. He was still finding his rhythm, still adjusting to the pressure of playing in a World Cup. But everyone could see something special was building. The knockout rounds was where the tournament really began. In the round of 16, Brazil faced Belgium, a tough team with good players. The match was tighter than expected. Belgium were defending well, and Brazil were getting frustrated. Then, in the 67th minute, Rivaldo found Ronaldinho with a perfect pass. One touch to control, one touch to set himself, and then boom! A shot that flew into the bottom corner. Brazil won 2-0 and were through to the quarterfinals. But it was the quarterfinal against England that would become legendary. This was a massive match. England had their golden generation: David Beckham, Paul Scholes, Michael Owen. The whole world was watching. The first half was tense, neither team creating much. Then in the 23rd minute, England took the lead through Michael Owen. Suddenly, Brazil was in trouble. The second half started, and Brazil came out flying. In the 50th minute, Ronaldinho picked up the ball in midfield. What happened next was pure instinct. He saw Rivaldo making a run, played this perfect through ball that split the entire England defense, and Rivaldo scored. 1-1. The game was alive again. But the moment that everyone remembers came 8 minutes later. Brazil won a free kick about 40 yards from goal. Too far to shoot, everyone thought. Ronaldinho stood over the ball. He looked at the goal, looked at his teammates, then looked at the goal again. David Seaman, England's goalkeeper, was off his line, organizing his wall. Ronaldinho hit the free kick, and at first it looked like a cross. But the ball kept going, kept floating, and suddenly Seaman realized it was a shot. He scrambled back, jumping desperately, but the ball sailed over him and into the net. 2-1 to Brazil. The controversy started immediately. Was it a shot or a cross? Ronaldinho was asked after the match. He just smiled that famous smile and said, "I saw the goalkeeper off his line, so I went for it." Years later, he would admit that he knew exactly what he was doing. It was pure genius. Brazil went on to beat Turkey in the semifinal and Germany in the final. Ronaldo scored both goals in the final, completing his redemption story after the mystery of 1998. But Ronaldinho had been crucial throughout. He finished with 2 goals and 3 assists, but more importantly, he had brought that Brazilian flair back to the team. When the team returned to Brazil, the celebrations were incredible. Millions of people on the streets, parties everywhere. For Ronaldinho, it was a dream come true. He had won the World Cup at 22 years old. He called his mother from the plane, and she was crying so much she couldn't speak. After the World Cup, Ronaldinho returned to Paris as a superstar, But his relationship with PSG was getting complicated. The club wasn't performing well. They finished 11th in the league, which was embarrassing. Ronaldinho was also enjoying the Paris nightlife a bit too much. There were stories of him going to parties, staying out late, missing training sessions. Luis Fernandez, the PSG manager, was fed up. "Ronaldinho thinks he's bigger than the club," he said to the press. "He only shows up for big games." This created a toxic atmosphere. Ronaldinho wanted out, and PSG, despite not wanting to lose their star player, knew they had to sell. The summer of 2003 was crazy. Manchester United wanted him badly. Sir Alex Ferguson had personally called Ronaldinho to convince him. "You'll be my new Cantona," Ferguson told him, "the king of Old Trafford." The deal was almost done. Ronaldinho had even started looking for houses in Manchester. But then Barcelona entered the race. They had just elected a new president, Joan Laporta, who had promised to bring a superstar to the Camp Nou. Initially, Laporta wanted David Beckham, but Real Madrid got him instead. Desperate and under pressure, Laporta turned to Ronaldinho. The Barcelona delegation flew to Paris for secret negotiations. They met Ronaldinho and Roberto in a hotel near the airport. The conversation lasted 5 hours. Laporta didn't just talk about money, he talked about history, about playing in the footsteps of Maradona and Cruyff, about being part of something special. "At Manchester United, you'll be another star," Laporta told him. "At Barcelona, you'll be the one who brings us back to glory. You'll be a legend." Those words hit home. Ronaldinho had always dreamed of playing at the Camp Nou, of wearing that famous Blaugrana shirt. The transfer fee was €30 million, which seems cheap now, but was significant money in 2003. Manchester United were furious. Sir Alex Ferguson later said it was one of the transfers he regretted missing out on the most. But for Ronaldinho, it felt like destiny. His presentation at the Camp Nou was unforgettable. Despite it being summer, and despite Barcelona not winning anything significant in years, 30,000 fans showed up just to see him juggle the ball. He did some tricks, waved to the crowd, and promised to bring joy back to the Camp Nou. The fans went wild. They had been starved of success, and here was this magician promising to make them dream again. Barcelona in 2003 were a mess. They hadn't won La Liga in 4 years. They had finished 6th the previous year. Real Madrid were dominating with their Galacticos. The club was in debt, the team was aging, and morale was low. Many people thought Ronaldinho had made a mistake. "He's chosen romance over success," one English newspaper wrote. But Ronaldinho saw opportunity where others saw problems. The team had young talents like Xavi and Puyol. They had just signed a young Mexican defender named Rafael Marquez. And there was this quiet kid in the youth academy that everyone was talking about, a little Argentine named Lionel Messi. Ronaldinho's first training session at Barcelona was something special. The other players couldn't believe what they were seeing. He was doing things with the ball that seemed to defy physics. Xavi later said, "We knew from that first day that everything was going to change. He wasn't just a good player, he was from another planet." His competitive debut came in a friendly against Juventus. Barcelona won 2-0, and Ronaldinho scored one and created the other. But it was how he played that mattered. Every touch was confident. Every move was purposeful. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was just being himself. The Liga debut came against Athletic Bilbao at San Mamés, one of the toughest stadiums in Spain. Barcelona won 1-0, and Ronaldinho didn't score, but he was clearly the best player on the pitch. The Bilbao fans, known for being harsh on opponents, applauded him when he was substituted. That's when you knew something special was happening. But the match that really changed everything came in December 2003. Barcelona were playing Real Madrid at the Camp Nou. This wasn't just any Real Madrid. This was the Galacticos. Zidane, Beckham, Ronaldo, Roberto Carlos, Figo, a team of superstars worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Barcelona were massive underdogs. Real Madrid had been dominating these matches for years. The pressure on Ronaldinho was immense. This was his first Clásico, his first real test. The Spanish media were watching, waiting to see if the Brazilian was worth the hype. The match was incredible. End-to-end action, chances for both teams. Then, in the 78th minute, Ronaldinho received the ball on the left wing. He cut inside, leaving Roberto Carlos behind, then hit this incredible shot that flew past Iker Casillas. The Camp Nou exploded, 1-0 to Barcelona. But Ronaldinho wasn't done. 5 minutes later, he picked up the ball in his own half. What followed was one of the greatest goals in Clásico history. He ran at the Real Madrid defense, went past 1, 2, 3 players, and then calmly slotted the ball past Casillas. The stadium was shaking. Fans were crying. Barcelona won 2-1, their first victory over Real Madrid in 3 years. After that match, everything changed. Barcelona started believing again. The fans started dreaming again. And Ronaldinho, he became a god at the Camp Nou. Every time he touched the ball, the crowd would chant his name. Kids wore his shirt to school. He had brought hope back to a club that had forgotten how to hope. The 2003-2004 season ended with Barcelona finishing second in La Liga, a massive improvement from the previous year. Ronaldinho scored 15 goals and created countless others. But more importantly, he had changed the mentality of the club. They were no longer scared of anyone. They played with joy, with freedom, with that special Barcelona style that had been missing. The 2005 season was when Barcelona really took off. They signed Samuel Eto'o from Mallorca, giving Ronaldinho a striker who could finish all the chances he created. They signed Deco, Ronaldinho's friend and a brilliant midfielder. The team was coming together perfectly. Barcelona won La Liga that season, their first title in 6 years. Ronaldinho was unstoppable. He scored 17 goals and had more assists than anyone in Europe. But it was one particular goal against Getafe where he showed his true genius. He received the ball with his back to goal, flicked it over his head with his heel, spun around the defender and volleyed it into the net. Even the Getafe players applauded. Ronaldinho won his first Ballon d'Or that year, being named the best player in the world. When he received the award, he dedicated it to his family, especially his brother Roberto, who had sacrificed so much for him. "This isn't just my award," he said. "It belongs to everyone who believed in me when I was just a kid with a dream." The 2005-06 season was Ronaldinho's masterpiece. This was when he reached a level that few players in history have ever reached. Barcelona were playing football from another dimension, and Ronaldinho was the conductor of the orchestra. The team was perfectly balanced. Victor Valdés in goal, a young and improving goalkeeper. The defense had Puyol, the warrior captain, and Marquez, elegant and composed. In midfield, Xavi was starting to show why he would become one of the greatest midfielders ever, and Deco provided the perfect link between defense and attack. Up front, Eto'o was scoring goals for fun, and Ronaldinho was creating magic every single match. But there was also this teenager who was starting to make noise. Lionel Messi had been promoted to the first team, and Ronaldinho took him under his wing immediately. There's this beautiful story about Messi's first training session with the senior team. He was shy, nervous, barely speaking to anyone. Ronaldinho walked over, put his arm around him, and said, "Stick with me, little man. We're going to do great things together." The Champions League campaign that season was special. Barcelona had underperformed in Europe for years, but this team was different. They destroyed Chelsea in the round of 16, with Ronaldinho scoring a magnificent goal at Stamford Bridge. They beat Benfica in the quarterfinals, and then faced AC Milan in the semifinals. Milan were the defending champions, a team full of experience and quality. The first leg at San Siro ended 0-1 to Barcelona, with Ronaldinho setting up the goal for Juli. But it was the second leg at Camp Nou that showed Barcelona's true power. They won 2-0, with Ronaldinho running the show. Every touch was perfect. Every decision was right. Milan's players looked helpless. The final was against Arsenal in Paris. This was a tough match. Arsenal took the lead early and then had their goalkeeper sent off. They defended brilliantly with 10 men, frustrating Barcelona. But in the 76th minute, Ronaldinho created the breakthrough. He played a perfect pass to Eto'o, who scored. Then, in the 80th minute, Belletti scored the winner after another Ronaldinho assist. Barcelona were European champions for the first time since 1992. Ronaldinho had delivered on his promise. As he lifted the trophy, you could see the emotion on his face. This kid from the favelas of Porto Alegre was now on top of the football world. But the season wasn't over. Barcelona also won La Liga, finishing 12 points ahead of Real Madrid. Ronaldinho scored 26 goals that season, his best ever tally. He won his second consecutive Ballon d'Or, cementing his status as the best player on the planet. There was one match that season that deserves special mention, the Clásico at the Santiago Bernabéu. Barcelona won 3-0, and Ronaldinho scored twice. But what happened after his second goal was unprecedented. The Real Madrid fans, the most demanding fans in the world, stood up and applauded him. They applauded a Barcelona player in their own stadium. That had only happened once before with Diego Maradona. That's how special Ronaldinho was that night. After winning everything in 2006, something changed in Ronaldinho. Maybe it was the lack of new challenges. Maybe it was the lifestyle catching up with him. But he was never quite the same player again. The 2006 World Cup in Germany was supposed to be Ronaldinho's tournament. Brazil had an incredible team: Kaká, Adriano, Robinho, and of course Ronaldinho. Everyone expected them to win. The Brazilian media were already talking about the sixth star on their shirt. But the tournament was a disaster. Brazil looked tired, uninspired. Ronaldinho, in particular, was a shadow of his Barcelona self. He looked slow, his touch was off, his decision-making was poor. In the quarterfinal against France, Zidane ran the show, while Ronaldinho was anonymous. Brazil lost 1-0 and went home early. What made it worse was what happened next. Photos emerged of Ronaldinho and some teammates partying in Barcelona just days after the elimination. The Brazilian public was furious. How could they be celebrating after such a failure? In Porto Alegre, angry fans destroyed a statue of Ronaldinho. The love affair between him and Brazil was damaged. Back at Barcelona, things were also changing. Messi was getting better and better, and slowly but surely, he was becoming the main man. Ronaldinho was still brilliant at times, but the consistency was gone. He would have an amazing game, then disappear for 3 matches. The lifestyle was becoming a real problem. Stories started emerging about Ronaldinho's partying. He was seen in nightclubs until the early hours, even before important matches. He was gaining weight, losing his pace. The Barcelona coaches were worried, but didn't know how to handle it. How do you discipline a player who had given the club so much? There's a famous story from this period. Before a Champions League match, Ronaldinho was seen at a party until 4 a.m. The next day, he played terribly, and Barcelona lost. When confronted by the coach, Ronaldinho just shrugged and said, "I've been doing this my whole career. Why is it a problem now?" But it was a problem, because his body couldn't handle it anymore. At 27, an age when most players are at their peak, Ronaldinho was declining rapidly. The magic moments were becoming rarer. The stepovers were slower. The acceleration that used to leave defenders behind was gone. The 2007-08 season was painful to watch. Ronaldinho was often on the bench, watching Messi,
Henry, and Eto'o lead the attack. When he did play, he looked like a different player. The smile was gone, replaced by frustration and anger. He was fighting with coaches, arguing with teammates. This wasn't the Ronaldinho that Barcelona fans knew and loved. When Pep Guardiola became Barcelona coach in 2008, one of his first decisions was that Ronaldinho had to go. Guardiola respected what Ronaldinho had done for the club, but he saw him as a bad influence on the younger players, especially Messi. He told the board, "We need to protect Leo. Ronaldinho's time here is over." The farewell was sad. There was no big ceremony, no emotional goodbye at the Camp Nou. Ronaldinho left Barcelona quietly.
His presentation at San Siro was grand. Thousands of Milan fans showed up, hoping they were getting the Ronaldinho of 2005, not the declined version from Barcelona's bench. Ronaldinho said all the right things. "I'm here to win trophies," he told the press. "Milan is a club with a winning mentality, and that's what I need." He was given the number 80 shirt, which was unusual. Most stars want number 10, but that belonged to Clarence Seedorf, and Ronaldinho didn't want to cause problems. "The number doesn't matter," he said. "What matters is what you do on the pitch." Carlo Ancelotti was the Milan coach, a calm and intelligent man who knew how to handle big personalities. He didn't expect Ronaldinho to run like a 20-year-old. Instead, he wanted to use his experience and technical ability. Even at 70%, Ronaldinho is better than most players at 100%, Ancelotti said. The first few months were actually quite good. Ronaldinho scored on his debut against Bologna, a typical Ronaldinho goal, receiving the ball outside the box, one step over to create space, then a curled shot into the corner. The Milan fans went crazy. Maybe the magic was back. He scored against Inter in the Milan Derby, one of the biggest matches in Italian football. It was a free kick, reminiscent of his Barcelona days. For a moment, watching him celebrate with that famous smile, you could forget about the decline, forget about the problems. This was Ronaldinho, and he was enjoying football again. But the inconsistency was still there. For every good game, there were 2 or 3 where he was invisible. The Italian league was different from Spain, more tactical, more physical, less space to play. Defenders were smarter, more experienced. They knew how to neutralize players like Ronaldinho. The lifestyle issues continued in Milan. Italy, especially Milan, is famous for its nightlife, and Ronaldinho took full advantage. He was regularly seen at fashion shows, parties, exclusive clubs. The Italian paparazzi loved him. Here was a global superstar living life to the fullest. There's a story that illustrates this period perfectly. Before a crucial Champions League match, Ronaldinho was spotted at a party in Milan's fashion district. When asked by a reporter if he should be preparing for the match instead, Ronaldinho replied, "I've been preparing my whole life. One night won't change anything." But it did change things. His fitness was getting worse. He was noticeably heavier, slower. The tricks that used to leave defenders mesmerized now just slowed down attacks. Teammates were getting frustrated. Gennaro Gattuso, Milan's tough midfielder, reportedly had several arguments with Ronaldinho about his lack of effort in training. The 2009-10 season started terribly for Ronaldinho. New signings had arrived, and he was no longer guaranteed a starting spot. Leonardo had replaced Ancelotti as coach, and while he was also Brazilian and understood Ronaldinho's style, he demanded more discipline and fitness. Then something unexpected happened. Ronaldinho started working harder. Maybe it was pride, maybe it was the realization that his career was slipping away, but he began arriving early for training, staying late to practice free kicks. He lost weight, looked sharper. The transformation was remarkable. In the second half of the season, Ronaldinho was brilliant. He scored 14 goals and provided numerous assists. Against Juventus, he scored one of the goals of the season, a back heel from outside the box that nobody saw coming.
Against Napoli, he provided 3 assists in a 4-2 win. Most importantly, he finished the season as Serie A's assist leader with 18 assists. The Italian press were amazed. Ronaldinho's Renaissance, the headlines read. He was voted Milan's Player of the Season by the fans. This resurgence should have earned him a place in Brazil's 2010 World Cup squad. Ronaldinho had done everything right, performed well, shown discipline, proved he still had quality. Brazilian fans were calling for his inclusion. The media were saying he deserved one more chance. But Dunga, the Brazil coach, remember Dunga, the player Ronaldinho had humiliated all those years ago in Porto Alegre? Well, Dunga hadn't forgotten. When he announced his World Cup squad, Ronaldinho wasn't in it. The explanation was that Brazil needed younger players, but everyone knew the truth. This was personal. Ronaldinho was devastated. His last chance to play in a World Cup was gone. His mother later said she had never seen him so sad. He locked himself in his house for days, not answering calls, not speaking to anyone. The rejection hurt more because he knew he had earned his place on merit. After the World Cup snub, Ronaldinho lost all motivation. Why work hard if it didn't matter? Why maintain discipline if politics would always win? He returned to Milan for the 2010-11 season, but his heart wasn't in it anymore. In January 2011, Ronaldinho decided to leave Milan and return to Brazil. He was 30 years old, still young enough to play at a high level, but mentally exhausted from European football. Flamengo, Brazil's most popular club, signed him with huge fanfare. The contract negotiations were interesting. Ronaldinho's representatives insisted on including a clause that allowed him to miss training twice a week for commercial activities. Everyone knew what this really meant: party nights. Flamengo agreed because, well, even a part-time Ronaldinho was better than no Ronaldinho. His debut for Flamengo was magical. Playing against Boavista in the Carioca Championship, he scored a hat trick. The crowd at the Maracanã went wild. "Ronaldinho is back," the commentator screamed. For one night, it was 2005 again. But the honeymoon didn't last long. Ronaldinho's commitment issues became apparent quickly. He would miss training sessions, show up late for team meetings, disappear for days without explanation. His teammates were getting frustrated. The younger players, who had grown up idolizing him, couldn't understand why he wasn't taking it seriously. There was one incident that summed up this period perfectly. Flamengo had a crucial match against Santos for the Brazilian Championship. Ronaldinho had been partying until 6 a.m. the night before. He showed up for the match clearly not in condition to play. The coach started him anyway because, well, he was Ronaldinho. He was substituted at halftime after one of the worst performances of his career.
After just 1 year, Flamengo stopped paying his wages. They claimed Ronaldinho had breached his contract with his unprofessional behavior. Ronaldinho's lawyers argued that the club knew what they were getting when they signed him. The situation got messy, with accusations flying from both sides. In 2012, Ronaldinho made a surprising move to Atlético Mineiro. This was a smaller club compared to Flamengo, but they offered him something different: respect and freedom. The coach, Cuca, was a Ronaldinho fan and promised to build the team around him. And, surprisingly, it worked. Maybe it was the lower pressure, maybe it was the fresh environment, but Ronaldinho rediscovered some of his old magic. He wasn't the explosive dribbler anymore, but his vision and passing were still world-class. The 2013 Copa Libertadores campaign was special. Atlético Mineiro had never won South America's biggest club competition, and Ronaldinho was determined to help them make history. In the semi-final against Newell's Old Boys, with the tie balanced on a knife's edge, Ronaldinho produced a moment of magic, a perfect free kick in the dying minutes to send Atletico to the final. The final against Olimpia was tense. After a 2-0 win in the first leg, Atletico lost the second leg 2-0, forcing a penalty shootout. Ronaldinho, despite being one of the team's best penalty takers, asked not to take one. He was too nervous, he said. His teammates understood. They won the shootout anyway, and Ronaldinho finally had his Copa Libertadores medal. That night in Belo Horizonte was beautiful. Thousands of fans celebrated in the streets. Ronaldinho, wearing the trophy around his neck, cried tears of joy. For one last time, he was the hero, the magician who had delivered the impossible. But even this success couldn't mask the reality. Ronaldinho was approaching the end. His performances became more sporadic. He was basically a luxury player now, someone who could produce a moment of magic but couldn't be relied upon for 90 minutes. In 2014, he made perhaps the strangest move of his career to Querétaro in Mexico. Nobody understood this decision. Querétaro were a small club with no history of success. The only explanation was money. They offered him a huge salary for what was essentially a retirement tour. His time in Mexico was forgettable. He played 29 games, scored 8 goals, and looked like he was just going through the motions. The Mexican fans who had been so excited to see a legend were disappointed. This wasn't the Ronaldinho they had watched on television. There's a sad story from this period. A young Mexican player at Querétaro later revealed that Ronaldinho would often skip training to go to the beach. When the young player asked him for advice on how to improve, Ronaldinho allegedly said, "Talent is enough. If you have talent, you don't need to train so hard." It was terrible advice from someone whose lack of discipline had cut short his peak years. In 2015, Ronaldinho returned to Brazil one more time, signing for Fluminense. But this was even shorter than his previous Brazilian adventures. After just 9 games, where he looked completely finished as a player, his contract was terminated by mutual consent. After leaving Fluminense, Ronaldinho didn't officially retire. Instead, he became a kind of football nomad, playing in exhibition matches around the world. He played in India, in Kuwait, in Peru, anywhere that would pay him to show up and entertain crowds with whatever skills he had left. These exhibitions were sad to watch for those who remembered peak Ronaldinho. He was overweight, could barely run, and the tricks that once mesmerized now looked forced and slow. But he still had that smile, still tried to entertain. The crowd still loved him, even if it was more for nostalgia than for what he was producing on the pitch. In 2018, Ronaldinho finally announced his official retirement. There was no big farewell match, no ceremony at the Camp Nou or the Maracanã. He just posted a message on social media saying his playing days were over. It felt anticlimactic for a player who had given the world so much joy. But retirement didn't bring peace to Ronaldinho's life. His financial situation was a mess. Despite earning millions throughout his career, he was essentially broke. How does this happen? Well, it's a combination of bad investments, excessive spending, and trusting the wrong people. Roberto, his brother and agent, had made numerous bad business decisions. They invested in companies that failed, signed endorsement deals that went wrong, and spent money like it would never run out. There were properties in Brazil, Spain, and Greece that were mortgaged to the hilt. There were failed business ventures in everything from music to restaurants. The lifestyle didn't help either. Ronaldinho was still living like a superstar. Private jets, luxury hotels, expensive parties, but without the income to support it. Friends and family members were on his payroll, bleeding him dry. He was too generous, unable to say no to anyone who asked for help. In 2018, the Brazilian authorities seized Ronaldinho's passports and froze his bank accounts. He owed millions in taxes and fines related to illegal construction on protected land. The authorities found that he had only $6 in his accounts. $6.
This was a man who had earned over $100 million in his career. The illegal construction case was particularly damaging. Ronaldinho and Roberto had built the fishing platform in a protected environmental area in Porto Alegre. They had done it without permits, ignoring multiple warnings from authorities. When fined, they simply didn't pay, apparently believing their fame would protect them. But the worst was yet to come. In March 2020, Ronaldinho and Roberto traveled to Paraguay for what was supposed to be a simple promotional event. Ronaldinho was launching a book and attending a charity event for underprivileged children. It should have been straightforward. The problem was that their passports had been confiscated by Brazilian authorities. So Roberto, in his infinite wisdom, obtained fake Paraguayan passports for both of them. They entered Paraguay using these false documents, apparently believing nobody would notice. But Ronaldinho is one of the most recognizable faces in South America. As soon as he arrived at the airport in Asunción, people noticed. Photos appeared on social media. The Paraguayan authorities investigated and discovered the fake passports. The arrest was humiliating. Images of Ronaldinho in handcuffs were broadcast around the world. The man who had brought joy to millions was now a criminal. He and Roberto were taken to a police station and then to Palacio de Justicia for questioning.
During the investigation, Ronaldinho's lawyer made an extraordinary claim that Ronaldinho was too stupid to know the passports were fake. "My client is not capable of understanding the gravity of these actions," the lawyer said. "He just does what his brother tells him to do." It was a defense that painted Ronaldinho as a child in a man's body, someone who had never grown up. The prosecutors didn't buy it completely, but they did acknowledge that Roberto was the mastermind. Still, ignorance wasn't an excuse for using false documents. Both brothers were sent to Agrupación Especializada, a high-security prison in Asunción. Life in a Paraguayan prison was a shock for Ronaldinho. This wasn't a minimum security facility for white-collar criminals. This was a real prison with dangerous inmates, poor conditions, and strict rules. The man who had stayed in the world's best hotels was now sleeping on a thin mattress in a shared cell. But even in prison, Ronaldinho was Ronaldinho. The other inmates were starstruck. Here was a football legend in their midst. They protected him, respected him, wanted to be his friend. The guards were the same, asking for autographs and photos when nobody was looking. There's a surreal story from his time in prison. The inmates organized a football tournament, and obviously everyone wanted Ronaldinho on their team. He played in the prison courtyard, on concrete, wearing prison clothes. His team won 11-2, with Ronaldinho scoring 5 goals and assisting the other 6. The prize? 16 kilos of pork meat. Videos of Ronaldinho playing football in prison went viral. There he was, still doing step-overs, still smiling, still entertaining. It was bizarre and sad at the same time. The other inmates were in awe, later saying it was the highlight of their time in prison. But behind the smile, Ronaldinho was suffering. Fellow inmates later revealed that he would often sit alone, staring at nothing. He missed his mother terribly. He couldn't understand how his life had come to this. The man who had played in World Cup finals was now playing in prison yards. His mother, Doña Miguelina, was devastated. She gave interviews to Brazilian media, crying and pleading for her son's release. "He's not a criminal," she said. "He's just too trusting. He's always been like a child." Her health deteriorated during this period, the stress of seeing her son in prison taking its toll. After 32 days in prison, a judge agreed to release the brothers to house arrest. They paid bail of $1.6 million and were moved to a luxury hotel in Asunción. It was still detention, but at least it wasn't prison. Ronaldinho spent 4 months in that hotel, unable to leave, waiting for the legal process to conclude. Finally, in August 2020, a plea deal was reached. Ronaldinho accepted responsibility for using false documents, but maintained he didn't know they were fake. He was given a suspended sentence and fined $90,000. Roberto received a harsher sentence, 2 years probation and a $200,000 fine. When Ronaldinho finally returned to Brazil, he was a changed man. The smile was still there, but it didn't reach his eyes like before. He had been humiliated on a global scale, his reputation forever tarnished. The kid from Porto Alegre who had conquered the world was now a cautionary tale. In February 2021, less than a year after his release from Paraguay, Ronaldinho received devastating news. His mother, Doña Miguelina, had been hospitalized with COVID-19. She was 71 years old and had underlying health conditions. Ronaldinho rushed to the hospital in Porto Alegre. He spent days by her bedside, holding her hand, talking to her even though she was sedated. He posted messages on social media asking for prayers, showing a vulnerability he had never displayed before. But on February 21, 2021, exactly 41 years after Ronaldinho was born, Doña Miguelina passed away. The woman who had worked double shifts as a nurse to support her family, who had raised her sons alone after her husband's death, who had watched one son's career destroyed by injury and another reach the highest heights only to fall spectacularly, she was gone. Ronaldinho was destroyed. Friends said they had never seen him so broken. At the funeral, he could barely stand, supported by Roberto and other family members. The smile that had defined his career was replaced by inconsolable grief. His mother's death forced Ronaldinho to reflect on his life. She had been his anchor, the one person who loved him unconditionally despite all his mistakes. Without her, he felt lost. In a rare interview after her passing, he said, "Everything I did was to make her proud. Now I don't know what to do." The football world rallied around him. Messages of support came from everywhere: Messi, Xavi, Kaká, even Dunga. Barcelona posted a tribute to Doña Miguelina, thanking her for giving the world Ronaldinho. It was a reminder that despite everything, Ronaldinho had brought joy to millions. Today, Ronaldinho lives a quieter life. He's no longer the party animal who dominated newspaper headlines for the wrong reasons. He makes appearances at charity events, plays in legend matches, and works as an ambassador for various organizations. He's particularly involved in youth football development in Brazil. He runs football schools in various cities, trying to give poor kids the same opportunity he had. "Football saved my life," he says. "Maybe it can save theirs too." There's something poignant about watching him at these schools. He still demonstrates tricks to wide-eyed children, still has that magical touch, but he also warns them about the dangers of success. Talent is not enough, he tells them, contradicting his younger self. You need discipline, dedication, and good people around you. His relationship with Barcelona has been repaired somewhat. He's invited to club events, his name still sung by fans at the Camp Nou. When Barcelona won the Copa del Rey in 2021, Messi dedicated the victory to Ronaldinho, calling him the reason I am who I am today. But there's sadness, too. When you see Ronaldinho now, often overweight and slow, it's hard not to think about what could have been. If he had maintained his discipline, if he had avoided the party lifestyle, how many more years could he have played at the top? Could he have won more Ballon d'Ors? Could he have led Brazil to World Cup glory in 2010? His former teammates have mixed feelings. Xavi once said,
Ronaldinho is the most talented player I ever played with, but also the most frustrating. He could have been the greatest of all time if he had wanted it enough. Puyol was more forgiving. He played football to be happy and make others happy. Maybe that's more important than trophies. The financial situation remains complicated. The debts haven't disappeared. The legal issues continue. He makes money from appearances and endorsements, but it's a fraction of what he earned in his prime. Roberto still manages his affairs, despite his role in Ronaldinho's downfall. Their relationship, forged in childhood grief, seems unbreakable despite everything.
How do we judge Ronaldinho's career? By conventional standards, it's a story of unfulfilled potential. He had maybe 3 or 4 years at the very top, when most great players have 10 or more. He won fewer trophies than his talent deserved. He made terrible decisions that tarnished his reputation. But football isn't just about trophies and statistics. It's about emotion, joy, and beauty. And by those measures, Ronaldinho was incomparable. He played football the way children dream of playing, with freedom, creativity, and pure happiness. There's a generation of fans who fell in love with football because of Ronaldinho. Kids who tried to recreate his elastico in their backyard, who smiled when they played because he smiled. He made football fun in an era when it was becoming increasingly tactical and physical. His influence on other players is immeasurable. Messi credits him with making him feel welcome at Barcelona. Neymar grew up idolizing him and tried to emulate his style. Even Cristiano Ronaldo has spoken about how Ronaldinho inspired him to try more tricks and skills. In Brazil, his legacy is complicated. He's still loved for what he achieved, the World Cup, the magical moments, the joy he brought. But there's also disappointment. He represented everything beautiful about Brazilian football, but also its flaws, the lack of discipline, the prioritization of talent over hard work, the inability to sustain excellence. The older generation of Brazilian players is particularly critical. Pelé has said that Ronaldinho wasted his talent. Zico called him irresponsible. They see him as someone who had everything needed to be the greatest, but threw it away for parties and fun. But younger Brazilians are more forgiving. They understand that Ronaldinho was a product of his environment, a poor kid who suddenly had unlimited money and freedom. They see his mistakes as human, his joy as authentic. He's not a role model in the traditional sense, but he's real, flawed, and relatable. What can we learn from Ronaldinho's story? Perhaps the most important lesson is that talent alone is never enough. Ronaldinho had more natural ability than almost anyone who ever played football, but without discipline and good guidance, talent can only take you so far. His story also shows the importance of environment and support systems. When Ronaldinho had structure, at Barcelona under Rijkaard, with Brazil under Scolari, he thrived. When left to his own devices, he struggled. Not everyone is capable of self-discipline. Some need external help to reach their potential. There's also a lesson about the dangers of early success. Ronaldinho achieved everything by age 26. World Cup, Champions League, Ballon d'Or. What do you do when you've climbed every mountain before you're even 30? How do you maintain motivation when there's nothing left to prove? The relationship with Roberto teaches us about loyalty and its limits. Roberto protected Ronaldinho, handled his affairs, and allowed him to focus on football. But Roberto also made terrible decisions that ultimately hurt his brother. Sometimes blind loyalty to family can be destructive. But perhaps the biggest lesson is about defining success. By traditional metrics, Ronaldinho underachieved. But he played football with joy,
entertained millions, and inspired a generation. He chose happiness over longevity, parties over training, fun over discipline. Was he wrong? That depends on what you value. There's something beautifully human about Ronaldinho's story. He wasn't a machine programmed for success like Cristiano Ronaldo. He wasn't a genius who made football look easy like Messi. He was a flawed human being who happened to be touched by the football gods. He made mistakes, lots of them, but he also created beauty, spread joy, and reminded us why we fell in love with football in the first place. As I finish telling this story, I think about that 8-year-old boy in Porto Alegre crying at his father's funeral while clutching a football. That boy would go on to conquer the world, to bring joy to millions, to reach heights most of us can only dream of. He would also fall spectacularly, making mistakes that would land him in prison and leave him virtually penniless. But through it all, the triumphs and disasters, the goals and the controversies, the trophies and the arrests, one thing remained constant: that smile. Even in prison, even after losing everything, Ronaldinho smiled. Because for him, football was never about money or fame or even winning. It was about joy, pure and simple. Today, when young players ask him for advice, he tells them something his father told him all those years ago. Play beautiful football. Not successful football, not winning football, but beautiful football. Because beauty, unlike trophies or money, lasts forever in the memories of those who witness it. And that's Ronaldinho's true legacy. Not the trophies he won or the records he set, but the beauty he created. The elastico against Chelsea, the no-look passes at Barcelona, the free kick against England, the smile after every goal. These moments live on, passed down from generation to generation, reminding us of a time when a boy from the favelas made the whole world smile. He may have lost his money, his reputation, and even his freedom for a time, but he never lost what made him special: the ability to make a ball dance and people dream. And in the end, isn't that really what football is about? Ronaldinho's story isn't a tragedy or a triumph. It's both, and neither. It's a human story, messy and complicated and real. It's a reminder that our heroes are flawed, that genius comes with a price, and that sometimes, just sometimes, it's better to burn bright and fade away than to never burn at all. So here's to Ronaldinho, the smiling magician who showed us that football is more than a game. It's art, it's joy, it's life itself. He may not have been the greatest player ever, but he was perhaps the most important, because he reminded us why we play, why we watch, why we love this beautiful game. And somewhere in Porto Alegre, in Barcelona, in Milan, in 1,000 cities around the world, there's a kid trying to do an elastico in their backyard, smiling as they play, dreaming of being like Ronaldinho, not because he was perfect, but because he was magical. And in football, as in life, sometimes magic is all that matters. The story of Ronaldinho teaches us that life isn't about avoiding failure. It's about how we handle it. He fell from the highest heights to the lowest depths, but he survived. He's still here, still smiling, still spreading joy wherever he goes. Maybe he didn't fulfill his potential in the traditional sense, but he fulfilled something else. He made the world a happier place, even if just for a moment. And really, when you think about it, isn't that worth more than all the trophies in the world?